I see so many people who are working to retire. They are working only because of the dream of one day retiring and not having to work anymore. And I don't understand why. These same people who are working to retire are going to have to retire at, let's say, 65, 70 years old. And they're obese. They don't work out. They don't take care of their bodies. They don't take care of their health, mental or physical. And they believe that, 65 or 70 is a guarantee. They're 50 and they're treating their bodies horribly. They're treating their bodies like someone who's not going to make it past 70. But the only thing willing them through each day is the dream that they will retire one day. And it's sad. It's sad that so many humans live for retirement. We postpone life, we wait to live. And in waiting to live, we never live because life never comes to you and says, there you go, you made it, now live. No, you'll always have problems, you'll always have things going on that'll never stop. And if you keep prolonging living to the next phase of life, you will wind up at the last phase of life realizing you missed it. There's a song called Time by Pink Floyd, and I heard this song and it actually changed my life. I've come back to this moment a couple times as being a decisive moment in my life. Yeah, I don't really like Pink Floyd. I don't not like Pink Floyd, but I don't listen to them. Um, but I heard the song and the lyrics. Um, I think it's like sticking around on a piece of ground in your hometown, waiting on someone to show you the way. Oh, I'm drawing a blank on it now. Um, Damn. More or less, though, it's I forget the whole verse, but the parts that say, and then one day you'll find 10 years have gone behind, and no one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun. That hit me because I was waiting for life, and I realized if I keep waiting for life, one day, I realized 10 years have gone behind. And, I heard that song at 19 or 20. So that just putting myself in those shoes, that put me at 30 years old. Missing my whole 20s, and what people say are your best years, or whatever you may say about those years. But missing them, I was like, well, that would suck. I don't want to just, and the other part, like I said earlier, kicking around on a piece of ground in your hometown. And that's when I decided to say yes to an opportunity to come to California for the first time. After hearing those lyrics, I realized I had to go for it because I didn't want to become 30 and not, you know, leave the piece of ground in my hometown and, miss the starting gun. But like I said, yeah, I've come back to that as a decisive moment in me taking a leap, and then that leap just led into so many other steps. But without that leap, the steps would never have been possible. And earlier, at the beginning of this video, I was talking about the 50-year-old, or the 50-year-old who's waiting to retire. But they're kind of, it's not too late for them per se, but they have a lot of life under their belt, and they're probably not going to, jump to take a risk. They have probably a family, they have all these things, they are just waiting to retire because that's all they've ever known. But I want to talk more about who that person was when they were 20. What did they believe was the point of sacrificing all this time to retire? To retire at an age you may never see. If you see it, your body may be destroyed. If your body isn't destroyed, your mind may be destroyed. And then if not any of those three things, which are pretty common for a 65, 7-year-old, what are you going to do with all that time? You just spent 50 years working 40 plus hours a week. You don't really have any hobbies. Maybe as your kids were growing up, you had them, but now they're gone. And maybe you're praying for grandchildren, so you have something to do, but then that's such a small amount of your time. 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's a lot of time. And I think it's pretty obvious that people who sacrifice their whole life just doing a job, not allowing themselves to, have any hobbies, go spend time exploring, mostly hobbies. It's like these people I see, they have no hobbies. All they do is work. And then when they're not working, they're, watching sports, or they're drinking, or, they're looking at their fantasy football. It's like, is that really what retirement is? Like, why would you even want that? And I also see a lot of people in my work who don't retire. And for a while, I it baffled me. It baffled me. I was like, how? Like, I know 70 plus year old people who, have probably $1 million+ in their, 401k or whatever it is, and they haven't retired yet. And it's like I said, when I first started working at this place, I was like, why? How? Like, I would be gone, because I don't really like it. So I'm like, I'd be gone. But now I see that I think those people are actually smarter than the people who say, I can't wait till I retire. And it's weird because those people are actually happier, I believe. All the people who still work while they can retire, but they just do it to, they seem happier. And I think it's because they're wiser. Maybe because I don't think everyone needs to have quote unquote profound existence and a quote unquote, you know, entrepreneurial life, or, something crazy. You need to have people that have normal 9 to 5s. But it's the people that spend 50 years saying how they hate their job and, fight against it. And then the day they retire, they wake up and they think, this is going to be really boring. Those are the people you're like, what were you doing? But these other people who don't retire, it's like, oh, they actually somewhat enjoyed their job. They realize, maybe it wasn't when they first started working, but recently, or maybe long ago, they came to the conclusion that they have, like, why would they want to retire? They're going to have too much time. And I think everyone knows you start declining once you stop, all these activities. So for some older people, retiring means dying sooner. Stop moving, just sit on the couch all day and watch TV. So it's like, now I view these people as actually smarter than the people who are racing to retire. The people who are racing to retire that, like I said in the first situation, have no hobbies, are overweight, just horrible health, and it's like why? It's like, why? You're gonna have so much time to just sit around and do nothing and get even bigger. Because the only physical activity you get is this job. It's like your health is just gonna decline even faster. But those other people who are working at 70, 75, you look at them and you're like, wow, you're actually in pretty decent shape. You don't hate this job. You actually seem like you're enjoying yourself. And that's a crazy thing. And like I said, not everyone needs to have a profound life. But if you're gonna not, if you're gonna have normal 9 to 5 life and retire at 70, might as well enjoy it. And you might as well pick up some hobbies along the way. And you might as well take some time to yourself. You might as well not work every single hour you can in your 20s to what? Have a little bit more money when you retire? To retire a couple months earlier? Like, what's the point? You worked for 40 years. What's an extra year if, you could potentially spend, you take a month off for 12 years, every year, take a month. You have amazing holidays, vacations, experiences throughout. And you only added a year on the end of it. I don't really know where I'm going with this video, but I've just heard it so much at work where people are just saying, I can't wait to retire. And it's like, I just think about them and I'm like, what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to do? They sit around at work and, scroll on TikTok and Instagram and they're like 50-year-old, 60-year-olds. It's like, what are you going to do? You have no hobbies. When you're bored, you just have to scroll to feed your senses. You have no discipline. It's like, it's crazy. Crazy. But then this also makes me think about my position and thinking, do I really want to work to retire at 65? Really work my whole life, a job I don't really love, to retire at 65? Or do I want to take a risk, go for something, go for a dream, or just do something, anything, for a couple of years? Why not? Why would I postpone living till I'm almost dead and postpone living to a point where I might not even get to? People take 65 for granted. Like, not everyone lives to 65. Not everyone lives to 25. Not everyone gets to 20. Not everyone even gets to 10 years old. It's like we take these things as like retirement as a guarantee. It's like, no, you might die. You might die at freak accident, or you might get cancer. So I see it from their perspective, and then I shift it. I put it on myself. And I'm like, what's really the point of working your whole life and just retiring at 65 when you're doing something you don't like? My goal, I don't personally see, and like this kind of tie it all in together. It's like, I don't see something particularly wrong with working. I personally don't love my job, but if I loved my job, I'd want to do it the rest of my life. Because when I'm 65, why would I want to retire if my job I love doing? You know what I mean? And then you have, say you make it to 80, you have 15 extra years make money, do all these things. And imagine if, you find a job you love and you commit to it till you're 80. You have 15 extra years than that person who is, grinding out to retire at 65. And so say you you get basically an extra 15 years somewhere to do what you want. So you say you take a year at 22, and then you take a year at 25, and then a year at 27, and then a year at 30, and then a year at 33, a year. You know what I mean? Like you take these, not even, it doesn't even have to be a year at a time. It could be a couple months every year, 3, 4 months every year. And you take these blocks so you have mini vacations throughout your life. While you're healthy, while you're in your prime, while you're fit, while you're mentally there. And you do that throughout your life. And you love what you're doing. And then you don't get to 65, barely making it while hating every day, having to endure a job you hate, to, finally, slam on the brakes to sit around and do nothing all day, to sit around and watch TV all day, to sit around and drink. It's like, why? Doesn't finding what you love doing, maybe making a little less money, maybe not having as good of his insurance, maybe having to work a little bit harder here and there, maybe having to do stuff that, you won't see the rewards for a while, entrepreneurial type stuff. Maybe it's not entrepreneurial type stuff and you just find a field you like. You have a lot of different jobs over your lifespan. But you didn't just save it all till the end. And for a while my goal was to get, free, to retire as soon as possible. To make as much money as I can, as fast as I can, so I don't have to work the rest of my life. And then I realized that'd be so boring. Like, work is not the enemy. Work is not the enemy. There's people who get to pry their cold, dead hands off their work because they love it so much. They love it so much, they do it till the day they die. Work is not the enemy. Work you don't like is the enemy because you waste 8 hours, 5 days a week for 50 years, 40 years doing it. That is the enemy. But spending that time on something you love, it's not the enemy. That's fulfillment. That's purpose. It doesn't get much better than that. I don't got to add anything anymore. You don't want to water down the main points. And fulfillment and purpose are the two main points. I don't need to add anything else. Even though I'm sure I and you could think of more. So I think we really need to rethink what we're sacrificing today for. It might sound smart, and I used to think I was pretty smart with my money and smart with about how I approach things. I'm like, all right, I have money in stocks, I have money in a retirement, I have money in a Roth IRA, I have money in crypto, I have money, all over the place with a good amount of money in my bank account. And I thought, okay, retire early. Perfect. Everyone else is out here going, drinking, spending their money on stupid stuff, doing, just wasting their money, going to the convenience stores every day and buying $5 protein shakes. When I just go and buy, a tub of protein and it's $1 a scoop. People go and buy $5 drinks every day. I don't do that. I was like, I'm being smart with my money. I'm gonna be able to retire early. And I was like, sweet, maybe I can retire at like 50 if I play my cards right. And if I stayed in my job, I probably could. Probably could. But still, 50 years old? No. No. We gotta realize what we're sacrificing today for. Because I wouldn't mind working at 80. I would mind working at 80 doing something I hate though. Or I would mind working at 65 doing something I hate. But at 80, doing something I love, something I'd do if I wasn't getting paid, sign me up. And for me, the goal's always been to find what that is. And I'm realizing that's harder than I thought it was going to be. And it's more difficult, but it's the task that's worth everything to me. You realize how important that is. Because then I have so much more time, so much more time on the table to be able to do things now and work later. Retirement isn't the goal. If I need to retire from something, that either means it means nothing good. let's put it that way. If I need to retire from something, it means my body's either giving out, my mind's giving out, or I'm mentally giving out. I can't handle it anymore. I'm just like, I can retire. I don't want to be here another single day. I would rather sit around and do nothing, or sit around and just do whatever than be here. Those are three bad things. And being in the last situation your whole life is horrible. Horrible. If you're, is people who made a profession and what they love is something that they use their body for. So it's like they get to a certain age, it's like, yeah, you can't do it anymore. And that's like, okay, fair enough. And then, your mind starts slipping. That's a whole nother thing, obviously, like out of your control is what it is. But it's like you have power to not, or at least you have the power to try to not be in the position where you are, fiending to retire, to sit around and do nothing, sit around and waste the days away, to sit around waiting for the weekend to go out to eat, or sit around. You get the point. You get the point. Now, finding out what you want to do is easier said than done. And I'm sorry if this video is not really aimed at one thing. I'm kind of just going on. I felt passionate about this topic. I have for a while, but like I said recently, things at work being said, I'm like, what's the point, man? And I'm just like asking myself now, I'm like, what's the point in working? I mean, I've always asked it, but I've been getting in deep lately. And it's like, what's the point of working until you're 65? Doing something you hate. Like, take the risk, do something you love, and you get an extra 15 years. How amazing is that? And even, maybe you live even longer. Maybe you live till 90. You get an extra 25 years. 25 years of working. You know how much pressure that takes off of you for having to make money now, ASAP? Like, so much pressure off of you. So much pressure off of you. Imagine someone who's 90 right now. Imagine if they bought a house, you know, let's say they went off, did what they loved, lived an amazing life, had a bunch of good experiences, listened to their heart, followed their dreams. It didn't all work out, but at the end of the day, they figured out kind of what they love doing. more or less, something they want to do the rest of their life. And if you didn't pay them, they'd still do it, but they found a way to get paid doing it, so they're happy. And they worked it all out. They were living in apartments and yada yada yada. And then finally at 50, they bought a house. You think, looking on the outside in, although they're all the corporate people around them, like, I bought a house 20 years ago, dude. My house is about to be paid off. Like, maybe it's like my house is going to be paid off soon. It's like, dude, you're far behind. I'm retiring 15 years. But, he's like, well, I love what I'm doing. You know, I love what I'm doing. And those people retire in 15 years and their house is paid off, but they don't, they're bored. They pick up part-time jobs because they're so bored, and they pick up a part-time job because they realize, retirement, not as much is coming in anymore. If I want to go travel and do all these cool things that I always said I was going to do when I retired, I need to get money. I got to get a part-time job. So they end up working anyways. And then that guy, my main point of this was, how much do you think a mortgage is right now for someone who bought a house 40 years ago? You think about it, it's like, he looked like he was so far behind. But this person probably has a house payment that's like 500, well, that's probably less than $500, probably like $300. A house payment. Rent is like $2,000 a month. And this guy has a house doing something he loved, still doing it, still alive, still kicking, not losing cognition, not losing brain power and physical power because he did what he loved, or because he's still working. He's not a slob, he's still working and he loves it. But he has a house, and he doesn't make that much money. He never did. He never was rich. But he got a house when he was 50, and now he has a cheap mortgage because 40 years, how inflation works. I think it's like every 20 years, like every dollar, like a dollar you make today in 20 years is $5, I think. And that could be wrong, but I read a book called The Compound Effect, and I'm pretty sure it said, like, that's kind of how inflation lines up, which doesn't seem that crazy. It seems crazy when you think about it now, because it's like, if rent 5x's in 20 years, it's going to be $10,000. Like, that seems pretty crazy. I don't know if that's true, and I don't know if the statement's true. But if you look about it, if you think about it, it's like, okay, maybe like in the 20s, you could buy a soda for like a penny. 20s, 40s, 5 cents, okay. 40s, 60s, 25 cents, okay. 60s, 80s, $1.25, okay. Maybe I was a little wrong in the math because we're we're around that range right now. But you know what I mean. I think you're getting my point. It's not worth sacrificing your life for a future. Like, what are you sacrificing today for? Is it a time and place that you may never get to? Is it a time and place that once you get to, you don't even know what you're going to do? You haven't even thought about it? Is it a time and place that you think you'll have no problems? Because you will. What are you sacrificing today for? And evaluate it. Think about it. It's crazy, but I think a lot of people don't think about what they're actually going to do when they retire. And maybe they do have hobbies. But imagine doing your hobby 7 days a week, every day. It's just going to start to feel like work. You're going to want something else to do eventually. I don't know. I digress. This video was all over the place. Um, but yeah, basically, what are you sacrificing today for? Did you spend all day? Is it a Saturday? And did you spend it working overtime because you want more money to go spend it on stuff you don't need? but in reality, or but you think you're setting yourself up good for the future because you're working overtime and you're making money. And even if that is so, you could die tomorrow. And even, you can't live with that also because, if we all thought we are going to, if we all lived like we were going to die tomorrow, I'm sure we'd all, quit our jobs and, unless you actually loved your job and then you just do it. But, we do a lot of things. If they said the world was ending tomorrow, I don't think people would wake up and get in their morning routines. Let's say that. Um, but you need to live like that's in the back of your mind because it's a chance, but you also need to live like you potentially might live forever. You don't disgrace yourself. I lost my train of thought. But yeah, I remembered working overtime. It's like why it's you know it's just really what are you sacrificing your time for? I'm kind of just beating a dead horse at this point, but I'll end it with the time lyrics. One day you'll find 10 years have gone behind.